Your fat cells are not broken, they are locked. And every single day, you might be walking right past the key without ever knowing it existed. Picture this. You wake up early, lace up your shoes, and walk. You do this for weeks, then months. Your legs get stronger, your lungs feel lighter, your discipline is real and it deserves respect. But then you catch your reflection in a window or step on a scale, and the same frustrating truth stares back at you. Your belly fat has barely moved. So what do? You do what almost everyone does. You assume the problem is effort. You walk faster, you add hills, you push yourself until you're sweating and breathless, convinced that more intensity must be the missing piece. And yet, weeks later, the mirror tells the same story. Nothing has changed. The frustration builds quietly until you start to wonder if your body is simply working against you. Here's the truth almost nobody tells you. The problem was never how hard you walked. It was never even how far. The real problem, the one hiding underneath all of it, is timing. Let me ask you something strange. If you could pause time right now, freeze the moment, and look inside your fat cells while you're mid-walk, what would you see? Would they look calm, relaxed, ready to release energy? Or would they look locked, sealed shut, guarding their contents like a vault that refuses to open no matter how hard you knock? Because here is something fitness culture rarely explains. Fat loss isn't just about activity, it's about access. You can move your body for an hour, sweat through your shirt, raise your heart rate, and still not touch a single gram of stored fat if the internal conditions refuse to allow it. Movement alone does not guarantee fat burning. It never did. Most people assume walking automatically equals burning fat. It feels logical. You're moving, you're expending energy, so surely your body is reaching into its fat stores to fuel that movement. But metabolic specialists see something completely different happening beneath the surface. They see that walking at the wrong time of day may pull almost all of its fuel from circulating glucose, sugar already floating in your bloodstream, and barely touch stored fat at all. Your body is still working, calories are still being used, but the fuel source running the whole operation is not what you think it is. And this is where things get interesting, because what I'm about to explain is something most fitness advice completely skips over. We're taught to think about distance, intensity, calories burned, as if the body treats every walk the same, as if effort alone decides what gets used for fuel. But your body doesn't work that way. It doesn't choose fuel based on how hard you're trying. It chooses fuel based on hormonal permission. And that single sentence changes everything. Your walk might be excellent exercise for your heart, your mood, your circulation, while still being completely ineffective at reaching stored fat. You are not failing. You are not lazy. You are not doing something wrong. Your body is simply following instructions. Instructions written by hormones you've probably never thought twice about. And once you understand what those instructions actually say, the mystery of stubborn belly fat stops feeling like a personal failure and starts feeling like a solvable puzzle. So let's shift the spotlight. Instead of staring at fat itself, let's look at the system controlling it, because that's where the real answer lives. Yes, fat cells store energy, that part is obvious. But far more important is the hormonal environment deciding exactly when that stored energy is allowed to leave the building. And the two main characters running this entire show are insulin and cortisol.
Here's a way to picture it. Imagine a warehouse packed with valuable inventory. Inside, workers are moving around, active, capable, ready to use whatever energy they need. Those workers represent your muscles. The boxes stacked along the walls, sealed and waiting, represent your stored body fat. But there's a catch. The door to that warehouse is locked, and insulin is the lock. If the workers are moving around outside, pacing, active, busy, they're still doing something, but they cannot reach what's sitting inside those boxes unless someone unlocks that door. Walking is the movement of the workers. Hormones decide whether that door ever opens. Here's what happens after you eat. Insulin rises. This is actually a good thing because insulin's job is to guide nutrients from your food into your cells where they belong. But here's the catch nobody mentions. While insulin is elevated, your fat cells hold tight to what they're storing. Your body prefers to burn the food you just ate first, before it even considers touching its reserves. So even if you go for a walk right after a snack, or you're someone who eats small meals every couple of hours, your body is very likely relying almost entirely on circulating glucose, not stored fat during that walk. The door stays locked the whole time. Then there's cortisol, adding a second layer to this puzzle. When your stress levels rise, cortisol sends a signal telling your body to keep quick, accessible energy on standby. In that state, fat usage becomes less efficient, especially in the stubborn abdominal area we're all trying to shrink. Your body isn't trying to burn fuel efficiently in that moment. It's trying to stay ready for a threat that may not even exist. Let's look at a few numbers, not to scare you, just to make this click. Insulin rises significantly after eating and can stay elevated for hours, depending on how often you eat throughout the day. And research examining low-intensity activity, things like walking, consistently shows higher fat oxidation, meaning more fat actually being burned, when insulin is low compared to that exact same activity performed shortly after a meal. Read that again because it matters. Same activity, same pace, same person, completely different result depending entirely on insulin. This tells us something enormous. Walking itself does not decide which fuel gets used. Hormones decide. Your body isn't refusing to burn fat out of stubbornness, it's following a protective set of instructions written into your biology. When insulin is high, your body knows energy from food is already available, so releasing stored fat becomes unnecessary. But when insulin falls, that stored fuel finally becomes accessible again. The lock opens. So here's the real question you should be asking yourself. Not, am I walking enough? But what hormonal state exists in my body when I actually walk? Once that question clicks into place, this whole idea of wrong timing stops sounding strange and starts making perfect sense. Now let's slow everything down and step inside your body minute by minute, the moment you start walking, because something remarkable is happening that you've probably never noticed. In the first 2 minutes, what's called the ignition phase begins. You stand up, your posture shifts, your nervous system quietly switches on, your heart rate climbs gently, and a small trickle of adrenaline enters your bloodstream. This is your body's early signal that energy might soon be needed. Your fat cells actually receive this message, preparing themselves for possible release. But here's the twist. If you recently ate or you've been grazing on small snacks throughout the day, insulin is still circulating through your system, and insulin quietly overrides that fat release signal before it even gets a chance to matter. Your body reads the situation simply. Food energy is already available, so stored energy stays protected, untouched, locked away.
Between 3 and 10 minutes in, something called the shift phase takes over. Your stride steadies, your breathing finds a rhythm, and right here, your body silently chooses its primary fuel source. This decision has nothing to do with how hard you're trying. It's purely biochemical, happening far below conscious awareness. If insulin is high, your muscles pull glucose straight from your bloodstream to power the walk. Real energy is being used, real effort is happening, but the fuel is coming almost entirely from your last meal. Your fat cells remain quiet, uninvolved, sitting on the sidelines. But if insulin is low, an entirely different process begins. Fatty acids start entering your bloodstream, and your muscles begin pulling from stored fuel instead. Same walk, same pace, same distance, a completely different internal story unfolding beneath the surface. From 10 to 30 minutes, the training phase kicks in, and this is where repetition starts to matter enormously. Your metabolism adapts to whatever pattern you repeat most often, almost like it's learning a habit. If most of your walks happen while insulin is elevated, your body becomes remarkably efficient at using glucose specifically for walking. It learns, through repetition, that movement and incoming food always arrive together, every single time. But if your walks regularly happen during low insulin windows, your body practices something entirely different. It practices accessing fat. The transport systems responsible for moving fatty acids become more active over time. Your mitochondria, the tiny engines inside your cells, become increasingly efficient at processing stored energy as fuel. And here's the insight that changes everything. You may be unknowingly training your body not to use fat during walking, not because walking doesn't work, not because you're doing something fundamentally wrong, but because the timing itself is quietly teaching your body a completely different fuel preference, one you never consciously chose. Your metabolism isn't stubborn, it's adaptive. It simply becomes exceptionally good at whatever pattern you feed it day after day, walk after walk. Now let's go one layer deeper, because walking doesn't just use fuel in the moment it happens, it actually teaches your metabolism what fuel to prefer going forward. Walking trains something scientists call metabolic flexibility, your body's ability to smoothly switch between burning glucose and burning fat, depending on what's available at any given time. In a flexible system, when food is present, glucose gets used efficiently. And when food is absent, stored fat becomes accessible without any struggle at all. But in an inflexible system, your body leans heavily on glucose and genuinely struggles to reach stored energy, even when it desperately needs to. If you frequently snack and then walk shortly after, your body rarely, if ever, experiences a true low insulin window. Insulin stays elevated for most of your day, and in that constant environment, walking actually reinforces glucose dependence rather than challenging it. You're repeatedly telling your body that activity and food always arrive together, every single time. Over months, your body adapts to this pattern completely. It becomes excellent at using glucose during movement, but far less practiced at reaching stored fat when it matters. This single pattern explains why so many people can walk consistently day after day and still see almost no change in stubborn belly fat. The fuel access pattern simply never shifts. Now here's the moment most people completely miss. If your goal is reducing belly fat, the worst possible time to walk is during constant grazing, when insulin never truly gets the chance to drop. If you're eating small snacks every couple of hours and walking shortly after each time, your fat release windows shrink down to almost nothing. Your body spends most of the day sitting in storage mode.
To be clear, this doesn't mean walking after meals is unhealthy. It genuinely improves glucose regulation, and that matters for your overall health. But if every single walk happens in a fed state and there's never a true low insulin period anywhere in your day, fat access stays limited no matter how many steps you log. Your body needs contrast. It needs periods where insulin drops low and movement happens at the exact same time. That specific combination is what trains fat mobilization. Without that contrast, you could be doing everything right on the surface, moving daily, staying consistent, staying active, and still never create the hormonal environment your body actually needs to release belly fat. The walk was never the problem. The timing, relative to your eating pattern, is what determines the fuel lesson your body learns every single day. And once that clicks, the frustration shifts completely. It's no longer, why isn't walking working for me? It becomes, when am I actually giving my body permission to access what it's storing? Let this pattern continue for weeks and months, and the effects become impossible to ignore. People who walk regularly, but almost always shortly after eating, often notice something deeply confusing. Their activity level stays high, yet their weight plateaus, and their abdominal fat barely shifts at all. They feel hungrier than expected between meals, and they find themselves relying on frequent snacks just to keep their energy steady throughout the day. Clinicians who study these patterns often see the exact same story repeat: stable body weight despite consistent daily activity. Resting heart rate improves, cardiovascular fitness improves, but fat distribution stays exactly where it started. The issue was never a lack of effort. The issue was fuel access that simply never changed. Because the body repeatedly experiences walking in a fed state, it starts anticipating glucose as its go-to fuel for movement. When glucose eventually drops later in the day, hunger signals arrive faster and stronger than they should. The body becomes dependent on incoming energy rather than comfortable pulling from its own reserves. This creates a frustrating cycle. Eat, walk, burn glucose, feel hungry again, eat again. Round and round it goes. Over time, metabolic flexibility quietly decreases. The body still functions perfectly well, but it develops a strong preference for quick, easy fuel. Belly fat lingers stubbornly, simply because the body rarely practices releasing it, and the abdominal area happens to be especially sensitive to these hormonal signals. Clinicians don't just track body weight when studying this. They watch energy stability throughout the day. They watch recovery after activity. They watch how long someone can comfortably go between meals without feeling shaky or desperate for food. When these markers point toward frequent hunger and near constant eating, it often reveals a heavy reliance on circulating fuel instead of stored fuel. None of this means walking is ineffective. It simply means your body is responding logically to the signals you're repeatedly sending it. If activity always follows eating, your body learns to expect fuel from food every time, without fail. But if activity sometimes happens when food isn't arriving, your body adapts in a completely different, more flexible direction. So, across months, the timing of your walks quietly shapes how your entire metabolism behaves. Consistent fed-state walking can absolutely maintain your health and circulation, but it may never seriously challenge your body's stored energy use. Introducing low insulin movement changes the message your body receives, sometimes in ways you can feel within weeks. The result won't be dramatic overnight fat loss. Let's be honest about that up front. The result is something better, a gradual, lasting shift in how your body chooses to fuel itself, day after day, walk after walk.
When researchers started comparing timing of activity rather than just total amount of activity, several findings genuinely surprised people, even seasoned professionals. First surprise: more steps do not automatically equal more fat loss. Two people can walk the exact same distance every single day and see wildly different changes in body composition, depending entirely on when that walking happened relative to their meals. Second surprise: frequent eating can suppress fat oxidation even more than simply being inactive. If insulin stays elevated most of the day because of constant grazing, your body rarely enters a state where it actually needs stored fuel. Even highly active people can end up primarily burning circulating glucose walk after walk. Third surprise: slow walking during low insulin periods can outperform longer, faster walking done in a fed state, specifically for fat access. The pace genuinely doesn't have to be intense. The hormonal environment surrounding your walk determines fuel selection far more than raw effort ever could. Fourth surprise: timing consistency matters more than total step count when it comes to metabolic training. When your body repeatedly experiences movement during low insulin windows, it practices releasing fatty acids again and again and becomes progressively more efficient at doing exactly that over time. The lesson underneath all of this is subtle but powerful. Walking is always beneficial for your circulation, your mood, and your cardiovascular health, no matter when you do it. But fat access responds specifically to context. Your body interprets signals, not just actions. If movement consistently happens while food energy is abundant, your body chooses convenience every time. If movement sometimes happens when food isn't immediately available, your body adapts and learns to use what it has stored. This explains something that confuses so many people: why some individuals increase their workout intensity, push themselves harder and harder, and still see no meaningful change in belly fat. They changed their effort. They never changed their environment. The hormonal context stayed exactly the same the entire time. So the goal here was never extreme fasting. It was never exhausting, punishing workouts either. The goal is simply creating occasional low insulin movement windows so your body remembers how to access what it's been storing all along. Over time, that ability strengthens, quietly, consistently, without drama. Once you understand this, walking stops being one uniform habit you repeat mindlessly. It becomes a tool, something you can place strategically throughout your day to actually influence how your body manages its energy. Before we go further, one honest safety note matters here. This isn't about extreme fasting, and it's certainly not about forcing yourself to exercise while feeling weak or unwell. Small, gentle timing adjustments are genuinely enough to make a difference. If you ever feel dizzy, shaky, or off during a walk, that's your body asking for support, not permission to push harder. Staying hydrated, eating enough throughout your day, and keeping a comfortable pace all remain essential. You should always be able to hold a conversation while walking. This is about metabolic guidance, never about physical strain. So let's return to that question from the very beginning. If you could pause time and look inside your fat cells during your walk, would they look calm or would they look quietly locked? For so many people, the answer isn't resistance, it's patience. Their fat cells weren't refusing to cooperate, they were simply waiting for permission that never came. Without a low insulin window, the body had no real reason to release anything it was storing. But the moment the timing shifts, the entire signal shifts along with it.
At the start of all this, it seemed like the issue was whether walking even worked. Now you can see the real story underneath. It was never a simple cause and effect. It's a relationship, one where activity and hormones are constantly responding to each other, listening, adjusting, adapting. Your body adapts to whatever you repeatedly ask of it. If you keep walking only when fuel from food is abundant, your body learns to lean on incoming energy every time. But if you occasionally walk when fuel has to come from storage instead, your body relearns how to access it, one walk at a time.